This is some of you might have seen this before, but a bit of just some simple manure work we did some years ago. Like you talked about 3 years. This is what we basically get 3 years out of the manures down there. This was only 2 tonnes to the hectare though, right? It's barely even a dusting on the surface. Any normal person would say that's going to have no impact whatsoever. But he's been doing this for several years now, where we put, you can see the strip of manure on this side going through the poor soils and the good soils here. You can see that there's a response in the good and the bad soils there. And you look at the yields, and the good thing is that it's where you put manure, the crappy soils actually yield the same as the good soils. So with a very, very light rate, which is quite incredible, just enough to kick it along. So yeah, don't be afraid to actually use some of that if you've got access to some that's cost effective.
What made that good soil good? What made the bad soil bad? It's just
Oh, this is quite different to our soils here, but it's low pH, high aluminium, and low CCs. Not much guts, sandy, and but we don't really know why the manure worked really well. We've tried to replicate this with nutrients and failed. We tried to replicate this with dynamic lifter, failed. We tried to replicate this with liming, failed. Everything except manure has failed. And same thing again last year. So there's something in there that's working, who knows. If you can get it cost effectively, it's a really good thing to do. If you need to balance, you need to do the books on it though, because it is pretty expensive, and it's expensive to spread and to cart if you've got to cart it a long way. But it does give results. No, we're doing some trials of compost at the moment because everyone's telling me you're an idiot for putting manures on, and you should be putting compost on. All right? But I don't think that's idiotic, actually. That's pretty good. It worked, so I don't really care. But the scientists tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. So, but yeah, compost, better again, because the nutrients are stabilised and it's in a good form that you've got no weed seeds, you've got no diseases in there, all those other problems hopefully have gone, like rocks, and yeah, all the problems with manures are gone in compost. Oh, it could be a range of things. It's a black box. Yeah, it's putting carbon on, it's putting nutrients on, but it's working for them. So, yeah. That's the first year. Yeah, and the second year was about half that, and the third year just about gone. We could just slightly measure a response in the third year. Yes. Yep. Yep. So it's denitrified, yeah, like you were talking about before. It's just denitrified. Yeah, it'll come back. It'll come back around again. Yeah, yeah. Once the soil goes from anaerobic back to aerobic, it'll kick back in again. So how much you put on? 100 tonnes over. What's the pivot? 50. What's that, about 20, 30 hectares, roughly? Is that right? 30 hectares? I'm not much good at maths. So, what have we got there? 8, what is it, 8 tonnes? No? So you're bloody brighter than I am. 7 tonnes per hectare. So that's a pretty good rate, yeah. Yep, that's about pretty normal, yeah. Yeah, bits of dirt and, yeah. Yeah, but no, most of the guys I know put anything between 2 and 10 tonnes to the hectare, yeah. Especially if you're irrigating, because you've got that potential to really kick it along and use up all that nutrient. Is that fine for up here, mate, or?
Yeah, I mean,
varies a lot, doesn't it?
if you need it with a plant
Yeah.
Some places we only did 10 tonne every year.
Yeah.
But we used to use it and incorporate it, spread it on wheat stubble. So we tried composting, but there was a lot of logistics and a lot of work and a lot of time. So we just put the manure on wheat stubble be our garden source, put our manure source, work it all in, and a bit of rainfall on top so we've got moisture and air, and we let it break down at rain, and it just worked brilliantly. And
Yeah.
it was steadily picking up our phosphorus and potassium levels year by year. And we're even starting to get organic carbon to move very slowly. And we didn't have any yellowing, although it depends a little bit on how much carbon source, you know, the old rule that nitrogen and carbon ratio
Yeah.
are 4 to 1. You start getting over that, that is the problem. So microbes, you know, try up leave the nitrogen to break down all that carbon before they start releasing again, and then you get the benefit of the nitrogen. Sometimes you get that, you've got a big heap of stuff. Generally, I would say in this situation, you get underwater, so you go underwater, that's not good at all. Yeah, I don't think we know that. So it should be fairly temporary. I mean,
Yeah.
7 tonnes of hectare should be a problem, and if there is a bit of tie-up, you know, a couple of months or not even that.
Yeah.
On hot conditions, it should be solid.
Yeah, so roughly about half that nitrogen, from what I understand, comes available in the first year. So there's still a lot of nitrogen that's in that unavailable form anyway. So, yeah, I wouldn't be that worried myself, really. I think it'll come around again once that goes back to anaerobic conditions. But yeah, it could be that too, that carbon nitrogen tie-up. So it's chewed up all the carbon and looks for the nitrogen and steals all that away from the plant. Hence, it turns yellow. Yeah. I guess another thing I get asked a bit about is wheel track management, and you know you've probably seen these things around, but there is plenty of options now for managing deep and rutted wheel tracks using like a Grizzly. Grizzly is pretty expensive. It's the best one I think on the market, but it's very expensive. So you might be able to share the cost with a few neighbours. That's what our guys have done down south. Just buy one between a few blokes because it's too bloody expensive on their own. Yeah.
It's a temporary body.
It only works where you've still got the soil there to put back in. If it's washed away, then it's no good doing anything. It just makes a bigger dish. Yeah. 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 It's got to be squashed up. Where now, like say if you go out spraying now, and you get bloody deep wheel tracks, and you then get another rain event, you know where the water's going to go. So there might be an opportunity there to stop that before it runs. That's all. Spray tracks, are a big problem. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I suggest. Yeah, and I've had guys tell me that just creates 3 deep rutted wheel tracks rather than 1. So then they, righto, fair enough, whatever. Yeah, I agree.
I don't see that, and if you're working with wet soil, and I go in there is bloody crap
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I mean on your. The biggest problem is going to be in the real soft country in where you've got big silt fans. That's going to be a problem. Yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd just throw it in there anyway if it's...
Well, we've got to do something to people.
Yep.
That stops the track. My track's that deep, but the rest of the track's that deep.
Yeah.
You can't cross them with a header, you can't cross them in a long run, you can't get right through, you can't even have the track.
Yeah.
It's got to be done, just smash the gear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard on gear. And you got headlands too. Yeah, that's the worst. Driving over bloody headlands. Yeah, so I hate to think how many of these things they've sold in the last 2 years. Unbelievable, man, after the floods. Yeah, across the board, everywhere. Deep rutted wheel tracks from one end of the country to the other. Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty aggressive, but they do a really good job. Yeah. Any more comments on any of that stuff that I've talked about? Yeah. Yeah, we can talk a bit about that. Are you talking flats, hills? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always been a big fan of running with the water flow to keep the water not concentrated and spread, and that's worked as far as I've seen everywhere. I've had a look. I put a lot of layouts in now, and I still think that going with the water flow to keep the thing spread. I think ground cover is the critical thing in all this, as you already know. Yeah. So you got to look at where that's coming from too. Is it concentrated coming in? I've got guys that have got wheel tracks this deep because concentrated water hit the wheel tracks and then took them out. So where's that water coming from? Why is it concentrating in those tracks? Is that across the board or is it just in some parts? So, yeah. So, I mean, the principle is we're trying to keep the water spread so it doesn't concentrate. Yep. You have less troubles. Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. What do you do next? Because you can't. If you go back in the same spot, you're going to end up with the bloody deep rut again, aren't you? You sort of got to rotate those tracks a bit. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's not much you can bloody do as a cropper to handle this sort of stuff. I mean, you're doing the best you can, and then, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but if you can grow grass and make money out of it, you grow grass. But if you got to do cropping as well, it's gonna happen, isn't it?
I think getting around and looking around, any of the companies that was on the old methods of farming that has eroded, like they make 2 or 3 or 4 inches on the hard pan.
Yeah.
But any that has been on and consistently on 0 hill.
Yeah, it's washed.
Those like the hard pan has disappeared.
Yeah.
And that watershed just kept eroding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, I do think there is a difference to what Sid's saying. I think the blokes on 0 hill.
Yeah.
I think that's why they seem, admittedly we've had a hell of a tank of water, but I think that's why we're seeing it so bad.
Yeah.
I think that 0 hill country is
So soft.
really suffering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just in my experience.
No, I've seen it time and time again. The only thing left are the wheel tracks.
Yeah.
So,
For anyone that traditionally farmed and they had a hard pan,
yeah, didn't lose much.
lost to the hard pan.
So,
That's a bad farm.
I mean, well, it's not, it might have saved it this time, but hopefully the 10 years before that, by having no hard pan, you're growing better crops. You would have hoped. But I've seen the same thing time and time and time again. The only thing left in the paddock was wheel tracks. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And wheat stubble's particularly bad, isn't it, for that? It blocks up and then it's real bad. I find sorghum the best out of the lot, but